Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge, where we break down what happens when crude oil prices go up because bombs were coming down. And we'll let you know about Snowflake. This one is an avalanche, folks. We'll have more on that on today's Rebel's Edge.
And there it is.
There it is. Gentlemen, start your engines.
That's right. That's right. Last one of the week, John. It's a shortened week. Last one of the week. Here it is, Thursday already.
That's right. People they're going to ask for refunds, Pete, because they only got 3 shows instead of 4. Welcome back, folks. I'm Jon Najarian. He, of course, is Pete Najarian over on that side. And we welcome you to the Rebel's Edge, where we give you macro, but we only give it a minute, not 30 minutes like on some of those 4-letter networks. And we also tell you what's going on with the VIX, with prediction markets, with stocks and sports. Yeah. And we squeeze it all into less than half an hour. So let's hit it, Pete. I'll say the macro today is core PCE prices rose slightly. The Commerce Department said that. And while annual rates were in line with forecasts, soft monthly readings could give some more hope, Pete, for maybe prices peaked last month and maybe they're starting to come back down. And if there's a peace accord, you bet there's going to be prices coming down. What do you say, Pete?
Yeah, and that's what we're waiting on, John. And even though, some of the numbers or whatever, you could say, well, what about this? What about that? I think the reality is, okay, inflation's been sticky. We'll acknowledge that, but we are on the edge of something very big happening, I think, in the Straits. Now it's a matter of when it actually occurs and all the rest of it. But the reality is, WTI a week ago was 108. Here it is in the low 90s. It actually got into the upper 80s. And we also had 108, 110. I mean, so we have pulled back on a couple of occasions and, sure, that's part of it. And we all know that crude oil, yep, that's a big part of inflation. But I think we're getting a heck of a lot closer, John. And when that actually happens, we're not going to go back to where we started, I don't think. Not that quickly. But we will start to pull back a little bit, and maybe we'll be in the middle 70s, upper 70s, something like that. But I think that's something that when that day comes, the market is going to take off.
Well, and isn't that what the VIX is kind of telling you too, Pete?
Right.
Because instead of the VIX being double where it is right now, it's 1/2 of where it was a little over a month ago.
Yeah.
So tell us what you saw today with the VIX.
Well, it had been in a pretty tight range right out of the gate. It was up there, John, 16s in the 1615, all the way up to about 1685. And then it just sort of went and started pulling back. Well, we not only have pulled back, but we're under 16. And, that just happened within the last 15, 20 minutes, whatever. But nonetheless, underneath 16, and there's so many people on television that are saying so many things about, well, that's really not right. That's not really, that's not. Well, at some point, something's right. And I would say the fact that we've got crude oil where it is, that tells me why VIX should be where it is. And it makes a heck of a lot of sense. And by the way, we aren't even moving 1% on the S&P. So 16 is actually a little high.
Yeah, well, that is, of course, the square root of 256, folks. It happens to be 16. That's what the VIX, if it's predicting a 1% move in the market, we're not getting a 1% move today, Pete.
No.
So you can understand why it's diving under 16 even at this point.
Yeah.
All right, prediction markets. Polymarket put this one up, Pete. I thought you'd enjoy it. Which companies will be acquired before 2027? So you've got basically 7 months to decide if this one's going to actually happen. Caesars Entertainment, Cursor, which we know Cursor, Elon Musk is going after it. And that one's up 67% just in the last little bit, Pete. Because of that, it's up to 86%. Cursor is. Viking Therapeutics moving up, and Zoom Video Communications also moving down. So they don't think that one's going to be acquired before the end of 27. You make anything out of this, Pete, or any of these on your hit parade?
Well, the Caesars is a layup, I think. I think that's as much as it's going to happen. So I'll kick that one off to the side. Cursor, I don't know enough about. Viking Therapeutic, I think, is a very interesting one. And I am intrigued a little bit with Zoom video, to be honest with you, John. I mean, and I know that I see it. It's down 14%, down to 38%. But it just seems like something that could very quickly get gobbled up. And that's why I think that one. Those others, Snapchat and those, I don't see that happening at all, to be honest.
All right. Well, Pete, Snowflake. Very strong, unusual activity yesterday. And now we know why. Because Amazon Web Services, AWS, extended a $6 billion partnership with them, Pete. And that's a pretty big check for somebody to write. And granted, it doesn't happen like, oh, here you go, all up front right now. But it's a multi-year deal. And Snowflake, somebody was betting that the stock would be going higher. And those people that made that bet, Pete, they are ringing the cash register today.
They certainly are, John. I mean, that's absolutely amazing run. And, up 35% on a stock like this is absolutely incredible. They did have earnings. The earnings itself, they crushed it once again. Who hasn't, right? I mean, it's like 80+% now. And yet we still get some of this horse manure coming out there saying, oh, yeah, well, it's this and that. Well, yeah, the economy is really not as bad as you think because the real money is showing us exactly what it is. They did raise the full year for 2026, John, $5.84 billion, up 31% year over year. They talked about the trajectory of what they're doing and how strong that is. There is nothing negative at all about what they did as far as the earnings. And obviously, this extended partnership you were talking about with AWS, I mean, $6 billion, holy smokes, that's not bad.
No, that's a big deal. And that's a big win for UOA, or unusual option activity. And we've got two more coming your way right after this stock, folks. Dollar Tree. So, Pete, big jump out of Dollar Tree today, exceeded analysts' expectations, reported earnings per share of 174 versus 155. That's a big beat. Revenue was also pretty dang strong. And I think you had an insight, Pete, into maybe some of the weirdness that's going on as to why Dollar Tree is getting so much love today.
Well, they did a partnership with DoorDash. Now, let's just back up for 1 second. You're shopping over at Dollar Tree, and yet you're not going yourself. I mean, I just found that very, very interesting. And I'm not trying to be mean about it, but I just, that's sort of one of those things where you just sort of scratch your head and say, really? All that being said, John, they raised, their guidance like you were talking about. They did open 400 stores. They closed a few as well. And that makes some sense that some they just weren't in the right area or whatever the case may be. But they did have to shut down 75 of them. But 400 new stores, that was something that I think they had slowed down on for a while, expanding themselves. But that's expanding pretty damn good. So I'd say there's not one part of what they delivered either, John, except maybe this DoorDash thing that wasn't unbelievable. And you know what? That's why the stock's up 17%.
Well, let's hit a drone stock, Pete, because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the Wall Street Journal reports that Trump is considering funding some of these drone companies. So first it's Intel, then it's Quantum, and now it's these drone companies, and UMAC, which is Unusual Machines, folks. It's a spin out of Jeff Thompson's company, Red Cat. And RCAT, Pete, makes military drones, and he decided, we'll push the hobbyist drones over here. Well, maybe they're not just hobbyist drones anymore, but unusual activity in this one, you betcha. People came in to buy calls in this one, and look at that jump that the stock made. I mean, it was a $17 stock. Now it's basically a $27 stock in 2 days, Pete. Yeah. 2 days. That's a pretty nice jump, and obviously really paying dividends to anybody who followed us into that unusual option activity.
Yeah, very, very fortunate if they were able to catch on to that one. And another one today, by the way, in ONDS. So, I mean, there's we got a lot going on in that space. And it's, the only thing I can add to what you had, because I think you covered it well, John, was if you can find yourself the drone stock that you want to trade, this probably wouldn't be a bad time to keep an eye on that, because you know what, these kind of agreements and the way the president moves, we've already seen it. We've seen it with a heck of a lot of stocks. I mean, the biggest one probably so far has been Intel, right? I mean, just an absolute juggernaut.
Yeah, well, and AV is one of the big movers here. Pete already said ONDS, KTOS, UAVS. These are all stocks that are moving to the upside, folks, along with Red Cat, RCAT. But the unusual activity in unusual machines was certainly welcomed by anybody who traded the options just over the last couple days. Yeah. All right, one more, Pete. Best Buy and Kohl's. Mm-hmm. So this is what I'll call my Connell McShane indicator, because those of you who know saw Pete and I on TV last week and might have said, gee, John's being rather harsh, saying, why would anybody care about a poll versus people putting money where their mouth is? Well, they put their money where their mouth is in these two stocks, Pete, and they weren't the only two. Several discretionary stocks, because Kohl's is not a staple. It's not something you need day to day like groceries. Neither is Best Buy. Now, they both have a pretty significant amount of stuff that people want, but they also don't need it right now. I mean, so if they were cutting back, if they thought the economy was, a little overheated and maybe it's due for a big pullback or a recession, Pete, would they be spending money like this at Kohl's, KSS, and Best Buy? And by the way, unusual activity in KSS. Mm-hmm. Just yesterday, the 27th, they bought 2,000 of the 5th of June expiring 14 calls. Well, those calls are now $1.40 in the money. And so you had at least a double, maybe even more out of this one, Pete.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible. I mean, you got Wisconsin out there with KSS. You've got Minnesota with BBY. I mean, the neighboring states and the whole thing, John. And I'll tell you what, Best Buy, the strong demand in all the key categories, really, they crushed it. I mean, they absolutely crushed it, up 38% year over year on their earnings. So they're doing everything it seems right. And like you and I were talking about, I mean, if the economy is what it is, what these people say it is, the 1,500 that are sitting at home in a pair of sweatpants itching themselves, yeah. Well, it's just amazing to me, because you look at the revenue numbers as well, John. They crushed it on the revenue as well with Best Buy, $8.9+ billion. And you know what? That was for computing and phones and services. And meanwhile, the best segment of all, up 38%, was the entertainment segment of Best Buy. Televisions, all that kind of stuff. So very, very interesting. And I'm not surprised at all that they did as well as they did, John, because everybody, 80+% at least, are beating again this quarter. Beating on earnings, beating on revenue, beating on damn near everything. It's amazing.
Yeah. So again, Connell McShane, would you rather follow a bunch of folks with Cheetos all over their fingers, living in their mom's basement, or follow real Americans and where they're spending money? I know which way I'll go, Connell. All right, Pete. Tell me a little bit about Vaughn Miller. I hear you want to talk about our mutual friend, Vaughn.
Yeah, well, and that's why it was intriguing for me, but I think it's intriguing for everybody, because we've talked about the free agency side of the market in the NFL. And there is a group of guys that have gotten quite a bit older, and some of them definitely still want to play. Von Miller's one of them. By the way, he's 37 years old, John. In Super Bowl 50, he was the MVP. So this guy has been a great player for a really long time. He still had 9 sacks just last year alone. So the guy is a heck of a player, still wants to play. Now, the pushback that if you're a GM and you're kind of considering this whole thing is he's only been playing, John, at least last year, 37% of the snaps. So if the offensive side, 60 plays, let's say, he's not playing, 60 plays. He's been playing 37% of that. So it's that. But, when you look at his career, 138.5 sacks, not so bad. He's had a heck of a year of a career. He still wants to play, but now he's pushing really hard to go back to the Denver Broncos. That's where he wants to finish up his career. So he hasn't been able to convince him yet, John, and I don't know that he will or will not, but you might have some inside information on that one. Is there enough interest there or not? Do you know?
Oh, there's definitely interest, and he is a stud.
Yeah.
And like I said, folks, Pete and I are friends with Vaughn. We're going to be going to his SAC Summit out in Las Vegas in July, where he and Max Crosby and Cam Jordan basically pass along some of the tricks of the trade to many of the younger pros and even college guys, I think, Pete, to show them, you got to give the guy this kind of shot when you're coming from the outside to have him turn slightly so you can get around him or whatever it might be. We'll be out there with ESPN and Bleacher Report, Pete, so that'll be fun. And we'll cover a lot more about what Vaughn's up to these days. But I know you had one more bit of sports, Pete, before we had to go.
I got one last one. OKC, they're 3-2 is their lead that they've got right now. Tonight is game 6, 7:30 Central Time. Wemby, they were taking it to him pretty good, John. They were playing physical. They were banging him around a little bit. He looked a little bit maybe tired. I mean, he didn't look as good as he did when he scored 41, and he didn't look as good when some of the other games. So you almost wonder, is he kind of wearing down a little bit? So I guess the question I just thought would be, I'll throw it out there for fun. By the way, it's back in San Antonio, so that's an advantage for them for sure. They're 32-8 at home, John, this past year. So San Antonio plays pretty damn good at home. Will they be able to play good enough to extend it one more game? What do you think going into this game tonight? Because they handled them like it was nothing the other night. I mean, they had a pretty substantial lead for the majority of that game.
If SGA, Pete, doesn't, have his problems and go 1 for 5 again, but, last game he went 1 for 5 in the first quarter and they still won it, like you say, going away. I still think he needs to shoot into the high 20s if they're going to be beating San Antonio in San Antonio. The Alamo Dome, I think they call it down there, Pete, or something like that. But I like their chances tonight to extend it. But again, if you get Holmgren hot or if their big center leans on Wemby enough to wear him down even more, then I think they could close it out in San Antonio. I know that's kind of like I said, both sides, but I'm really serious about if SGA puts up 20 plus, Pete, games, the series is over.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I actually think that even though they're great at home, I think that OKC is actually going to take it to them. And I'll tell you what, Caruso doesn't get nearly enough credit. That guy flies around the court. He's not like some 6'8" guy or anything, but he's a hustler. He's a heck of a player. He's always running. He's always moving. And the guy seems to be able to score pretty well. I'd like to see them get him more into the game than they do because you know what? Sometimes SGA, if he's going into a slump or whatever, get Caruso in. The kid is just great to watch. He really is. He reminds me of Williams from the days of Sacramento, where he can do all sorts of things, and he's got an amazing ability dribbling and shooting and everything else. So I'd like to see him be a bigger part of this game. And I think if so, I think they win it.
Well, folks, thanks for joining us. We will be back Monday with another Rebels Edge.
He's got an amazing ability dribbling. Oh, I think they win it.
Well, folks, thanks for joining us. We will be back Monday with another.
We're going to be back at 1 p.m. And by the way, it's a full week next week. So yeah, we're going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.